You think you could survive one day in medieval London, not a year, not a month, not even a week, just one day, 24 hours in the largest, loudest, richest, dirtiest, most crowded city in England. And here is the truth no movie ever really tells you. You probably would not make it to nightfall, not because a knight would cut you down in the street, not because a king would throw you in a dungeon, not because some dramatic battle would suddenly break out in front of you. No, you would lose to the ordinary things, the water, the air, the food, the cold, the smell, the darkness, the people standing too close, the waste running beneath your feet, the law you do not understand, the disease you cannot see, the city itself. Because medieval London was not a fantasy world of stone castles, taverns, candles, and charming little streets. Medieval London was a living machine made of wood, mud, smoke, blood, bells. It was a city where opportunity and death slept in the same room. A city where a person could buy silk from the east in the morning and step into sewage before noon. A city where church bells called people toward heaven, while the street under their feet carried everything human beings wanted to throw away. So tonight, we are not going to look at medieval London from a safe distance. We are not going to admire it like a painting. We are going to put you inside it. We're going to give you one day, one body, one set of lungs, one stomach, one pair of modern feet in a world that was never designed for your comfort. And I want you to ask yourself honestly at every turn, would you really survive this? Would you even understand what was happening quickly enough to save yourself? Or would the city defeat you before you had learned its rules? Let us begin before sunrise, because medieval London does not wait for comfort before it wakes. You open your eyes in a small rented room above a workshop near one of the busy lanes leading towards the Thames. The ceiling is low. The air is cold. The floorboards are uneven. The bed is not really a bed in the way you understand the word. It is a mattress stuffed with straw, old cloth, perhaps feathers if you are lucky, and whatever lives inside that bedding has already found you. Fleas, lice, bedbugs, things that bite in the dark and leave you scratching before the day has even begun. And here is the first question. How long would your modern body tolerate a night where sleep is not rest, but a negotiation with insects, cold, noise, and the smell of other people breathing in the same room? Because you are not alone. Privacy is a luxury. Someone may be sleeping a few feet away, a servant, a relative, a stranger, a child. Bodies share space because space is expensive and heat is precious, and London does not waste rooms on solitude. You sit up, and the first thing you notice is the smell. Not one smell, layers. Smoke from last night's fire. Damp wool. Sweat held in clothing that has not been properly washed. Old straw, stale ale, wood rot. Human waste somewhere outside. Animal waste closer than you would like. Fish from the river, tallow from candles, smoke from thousands of hearths, and underneath all of it, that thick city smell of too many lives pressed too tightly together. What would you do in that first minute? Would you cover your nose? Would you gag? Would you try to open a shutter? And if you did, would the air outside be any better? You push the shutter open, and medieval London enters the room. It is still dark, but the city is already moving. A cart creaks somewhere below. Hooves strike stone. A woman calls to someone across the lane. A dog barks. A rooster screams from a yard where no yard should really fit. Somewhere a church bell begins, because in this world, time does not belong to clocks on walls. It belongs to bells, to prayer, to work, to the rhythm of church and labour. You look down into the street, and the street is not a street as you know it. It is narrow, wet, uneven, and alive. The upper stories of houses lean over it, as if the buildings themselves are tired and trying to rest their heads together. Wooden beams jut out, signs hang over doorways. The road below is a channel of mud, manure, straw, rotten vegetables, spilled ale, fish guts, ashes, and whatever people threw from windows in the night. And yes, sometimes that means exactly what you think it means. There is no modern sewage system waiting politely underground to carry the city's filth away. There are gutters, ditches, cesspits, streams, the river, luck, and denial. So before breakfast, before work, before anything dramatic happens, your first enemy is simply the ground. Would you know where to step? Would you recognize which puddle is rainwater and which is something else? Would you understand that one careless slip could put infection into a cut you barely noticed? You dress, or rather, you try to dress. Your modern clothes would mark you instantly. So imagine you are given wool, linen, leather, layers that itch, cling, smell of smoke, and absorb the weather. Medieval clothing is not costume. It is equipment. It tells people who you are, how much money you have, what work you do, what rules apply to you, and how much respect or suspicion you deserve before you have spoken a word. And that is another danger you would not expect. You think survival is about food and disease and violence. It is also about belonging. Do you know how to speak? Do you know how to bow? Do you know which guild controls which trade? Do you know who may carry a weapon, who may sell bread, who may enter certain spaces, who may be questioned, who may be punished? In medieval London, ignorance is not charming. Ignorance is dangerous. A wrong word to the wrong person can turn a small mistake into a public problem. You go downstairs. The workshop below is already awake. Perhaps it belongs to a baker, a tanner, a smith, a brewer, a weaver, a butcher, or a merchant. The medieval city is not divided neatly between home and work. Work is everywhere. People sleep above shops, beside animals, behind stalls, near tools, near fire, near stock, near waste. A household is also a business. A street is also a market. A neighbour is also competition. The smell changes as you descend. If it is a bakery, there is warmth, flour dust, yeast, sweat, and ash. If it is a tannery nearby, God help you, because tanning leather requires urine, lime, animal hides, rotting flesh, and processes that make even a hardened medieval nose suffer. If it is a butcher's lane, there may be blood in the gutter before sunrise. So ask yourself, how many minutes would it take before you stopped romanticizing the past? How long before the charming medieval street became a place you wanted to escape? Breakfast is not what you imagine. No glowing tavern meal, no heroic wooden table covered in roasted meat. Most people do not begin the day with abundance. You might have coarse bread, pottage, ale, maybe cheese, maybe onions, maybe leftovers, maybe nothing warm if fuel is scarce. Ale is common, not because everyone is drunk all day, but because weak ale is safer and more ordinary than much of the water. Water can be dangerous. Everyone knows bad water can make you sick, though they do not understand microbes. Wells can be contaminated. The Thames receives waste, blood, industrial runoff, and human filth. Streams carry whatever people put into them. And here is a very simple question. If you were thirsty, truly thirsty, would you know what was safe to drink? Or would your first modern instinct betray you, because one cup from the wrong source could ruin you before noon? Not dramatically, not instantly, but with cramps, fever, diarrhea, dehydration, and weakness in a world where weakness is expensive. You take a piece of bread. It is dense, coarse, perhaps dark, perhaps gritty depending on the grain and the mill. And even bread has rules. Bread is watched. Bread is weighed. Bread can cause riots. Bakers can be fined or punished if they cheat the weight or quality. Why? Because bread is not just food. Bread is survival. Bread is the line between a working body and a failing one. In a city this crowded, food is a logistical miracle happening every day. Grain must arrive, flour must be milled, ovens must be heated, prices must be controlled, workers must be fed, And any break in that chain turns hunger into anger very quickly. So when you bite into that bread, ask yourself, do you know how many people had to show up alive this morning for that mouthful to exist? Now you step outside and the city hits you all at once. Medieval London is not quiet. It is shouting, hammering, ringing, bargaining, praying, coughing, laughing, cursing, chopping, scraping, squealing and barking. Vendors call out goods, apprentices carry messages, men drag carts, women move with baskets, pigs nose through filth, dogs fight in alleys, chickens scatter, horses steam in the cold air, bells mark prayer, hammers strike metal. Somewhere someone is singing, somewhere else someone is being cursed. And the street is close, so close that you cannot move without being seen, brushed, smelled, judged. What would happen to your nervous system in a place where there is no pause, no private bubble, no clean edge between you and other bodies? You are used to personal space. Medieval London is not. You begin walking toward the market, perhaps Cheapside, perhaps one of the busiest commercial arteries of the city. The name itself means market. This is where London shows its wealth. Goldsmiths, drapers, spice sellers, mercers, fishmongers, bakers, cloth merchants, traders with goods from across England and beyond. There is colour here, noise, money, hunger, ambition. If you only saw it from above, you might think it beautiful. But from inside, you are shoved between bodies, animals, carts and waste. A man carrying a heavy load nearly knocks you into a gutter. A woman curses you because you are standing in her way. An apprentice laughs at how helpless you look. A dog snaps near your ankle. Someone spits. Someone coughs into the open air. Someone's hand brushes your purse, if you have one. And suddenly you understand something important. The danger is not one big event. It is constant contact, constant friction, constant exposure. What would you protect first? Your money, your skin, your dignity, your balance, your breath? And then there is the smell of the meat stalls. Fresh meat in medieval London is not wrapped in plastic under clean lights. It hangs, it bleeds, it sits in air touched by flies, smoke, hands, dust, and the breath of customers. Butchers work openly. Animals may be driven through the streets alive before slaughter. Blood can run where people walk. Fish from the Thames or from coastal trade may arrive in baskets, shining, stinking, half-fresh, salted, smoked, or already beginning to turn. Spices are valuable partly because they flavour food, but also because they fight the dullness and danger of preservation. Salt is not a seasoning in the modern sense. Salt is technology. Smoke is technology. Vinegar is technology. Fermentation is technology. Without refrigeration, food is always in a race against rot. So ask yourself, would you know what is safe to eat? Would you recognize meat that has turned? Would you trust your nose in a city where everything smells strong already? Or would the meal you buy to survive the day become the thing that takes you down? At the market, the social order is everywhere. Guilds regulate trades, officials inspect weights, customers haggle, sellers shout, apprentices watch masters, servants shop for households, monks and clerks pass through, beggars hold out hands. A wealthy merchant's cloak parts the crowd more easily than your uncertain body ever could. This is a city of hierarchy, and every gesture tells a story. You, the modern visitor, know none of the stories. You do not know who outranks whom. You do not know when to step aside. You do not know when a joke is safe. You do not know when silence is wiser. How long before someone notices you do not belong? And in a world without identity cards as you know them, without digital records, without easy proof of who you are, what does it mean to be a stranger? Being a stranger is dangerous. London is rich because trade flows through it, but that does not mean strangers are trusted. Outsiders can be blamed for disease, theft, cheating, religious tension, political trouble. A person without visible ties, without a master, without known work, without a household, can draw attention, and attention is not always opportunity. Sometimes attention is the beginning of accusation. So when a man asks where you come from, what do you say? If you answer badly, do you sound foreign, suspicious, mad? If you say nothing, do you look guilty? If you invent a story, can you keep it alive for the next 12 hours? By mid-morning, your feet already hurt. Medieval shoes are not modern shoes. Streets are not smooth. Mud grips. Stones twist. Filth splashes. A small blister can open. A small cut can become infected. You are used to antiseptic, clean socks, hot showers, antibiotics, bandages sealed in sterile paper. Medieval London offers you cloth, prayer, herbs, luck, and perhaps a surgeon if you can pay and if you can endure what he thinks will help. What would you do if you cut your foot in that gutter? Would you keep walking? Would you wash it? In what water? Would you bind it? With what cloth? And would that cloth be cleaner than the wound? Somewhere nearby, a public punishment is taking place, and you may not realize at first what you are seeing. Medieval justice is not hidden away behind quiet institutional walls. It is public because shame is part of the sentence. A dishonest baker might be dragged with bad bread. A scold might be humiliated. A thief might be displayed. A criminal might face brutal penalties. Punishment is theatre, warning, entertainment, and law at once. People gather. Some laugh, some watch solemnly, some bring children, and you, with your modern instincts, may look away. But if you look away too obviously, what does that say about you? If you stare too long, what does that say? This city teaches through spectacle. It wants you to remember what happens when rules are broken. But do you even know all the rules? As the day warms, the waste grows worse. People toss things from doorways. Animals add to the street. Rain has not washed enough away. The gutters carry a slow, foul stream. You see a child barefoot near it. You see a woman lifting her skirts just enough to cross. You see a man slip and curse as his boot sinks deeper than expected. And perhaps now you begin to understand why medieval people feared bad air. If you lived in a place where corruption had a smell, where disease seemed to follow stink, where rot and sickness shared the same streets, would you not believe the air itself could be poisoned? We know more now, but knowledge has made us arrogant. Standing there, breathing that city, would miasma really sound absurd? You decide to find cleaner air near the river. That is your next mistake. The Thames is not a postcard river. It is the city's road, its trade artery, its waste channel, its food source, its border, its workplace, and its danger. Boats move constantly. Ferrymen shout. Barges carry goods. Fishers work. Merchants oversee unloading. Laborers haul barrels and sacks. The river smells of mud, fish, salt, sewage, tar, wet rope, and human industry. London Bridge stands crowded with houses and shops, a bridge that is itself a street, a market, a passage, a marvel, and a trap. The heads of traitors may be displayed in later medieval centuries near the bridge as warnings to all who enter. The city likes reminders, it likes symbols, it likes power to be visible. And if you are standing near the Thames thinking the open water will bring relief, ask yourself, how many dead animals, how much waste, how much blood from slaughter, how much human filth has already passed through what you are breathing? You are hungry again. That surprises you. Fear burns energy. Walking burns energy. Cold burns energy. Medieval life is physical in a way modern life often is not. Everything requires effort. Water must be carried. Fire must be made and fed. Food must be bought, chopped, stirred, preserved. Clothing must be mended. Streets must be crossed carefully. Work is muscle. Survival is muscle. And now, after only a few hours, your body is already asking questions. Where is clean food? Where is safe rest? Where is a place to sit without being in someone's way? Where is a toilet? That last question alone might defeat you. Privacy, sanitation, bodily comfort, the invisible systems that support your dignity are not waiting for you here. You must adapt to a world where the body is public, smells are public, waste is public, suffering is public. Could you do that without breaking? Near noon, you enter a tavern or alehouse, thinking perhaps this will feel familiar. A drink, a bench, a room, human voices. But this is not a modern pub with atmosphere designed for your pleasure. It is crowded, smoky, loud and dim. Men talk business, labourers drink, a woman serves, someone argues over payment, someone laughs too hard, someone watches you because you look uncertain. Ale is safer than water, but not all ale is good. Food may be available, but you must know what you're ordering and what it should cost. Coins matter, measures matter, reputation matters. If you overpay, you mark yourself as foolish. If you underpay, you invite trouble. If you ask too many questions, you mark yourself as foreign to the world you are trying to survive. So what do? Sit quietly? Speak? Pretend? And how long can pretending protect you? A man beside you coughs deeply, wetly. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and reaches for the shared cup or bowl or bench. You notice because you are modern, you think of germs, but no one else moves away with the precision you expect. People understand sickness, of course they do, but they do not live with your categories, and they do not see the invisible network you see. And that may make the room more frightening, not less, because you know just enough to be terrified and not enough to control anything. How many surfaces have you touched already? How many hands brushed yours in the market? How many fleas found your clothing before you even left the room? How many risks have already entered your day without announcing themselves? Outside again, the city's afternoon is tightening. Work accelerates before light begins to fail. Remember, darkness matters. In your world, night is inconvenient. In medieval London, night is a transformation. Streets that are merely filthy by day become dangerous by night. Movement becomes harder. Crime becomes easier. Fire becomes more frightening. Candles and lamps cost money. Curfews and watchmen exist for a reason. So the city works while it can. Goods must be moved. Deals must be finished. Animals must be secured. Fires must be controlled. Doors must be barred. And you, who are used to extending the day with electricity, must suddenly understand the ancient pressure of sunset. What would you do differently if darkness truly ended your freedom? As you move through the streets, you pass St. Paul's, not the modern cathedral you may picture, but the old medieval one, vast and imposing, its spire rising above the city like a finger pointing toward heaven. The churchyard is busy. People meet, trade, gossip, pray, hire, scheme. Religion is not a private corner of life. It is the structure through which time, death, law, morality, and community are understood. Bells tell you when to pray. Saints' days shape the calendar. Confession matters, burial matters, oaths matter. Sin is not a metaphor. The soul is not an idea. It is your eternal future. And here is a question modern people often avoid. If you truly believed eternity was at stake, how would that change the way you walk through one ordinary day? A funeral passes, or perhaps not a formal funeral, but a body being taken for burial. Death is more visible here. Children die, mothers die in childbirth, workers die from injury, infection kills, fever kills, bad food kills, winter kills, violence kills. The average modern person is sheltered from death compared with this world. In medieval London, death is not hidden in hospitals and funeral homes. It moves through streets, churches, houses, and memory. Would you become harder, more religious, more frightened, more grateful? Or would the closeness of death make you reckless? You begin to feel unwell in the afternoon. Maybe it is the ale, maybe the food, maybe the smell, maybe exhaustion, maybe fear. Maybe you are simply not built for this environment. Your stomach turns, your head aches, you are cold under your layers and sweating at the same time. And now the thought arrives, what if you are already sick? In your world, sickness usually has pathways. You can call someone, search symptoms, take medicine, rest. In this world, illness is uncertainty. A headache could be nothing, a fever could be death. Stomach pain could pass by morning or empty you until you cannot stand. A toothache could become an abscess. A cut could become a fatal infection. What would fear do to you if every discomfort carried real possibility? You look for a physician, but medicine here is not what you want it to be. Learned physicians may speak of humours, balance, heat, cold, wet, dry, blood, bile, phlegm, melancholy. Surgeons may cut, bleed, set bones, lance swellings, amputate. Barbers may do work you associate with hospitals. Apothecaries may sell herbs, syrups, powders, and hope. Some remedies help, some do nothing, some make things worse. Much depends on money, much depends on luck. Would you trust them? And if you did not, what alternative would you have? Your modern knowledge would be almost useless without modern tools. Knowing bacteria exist does not give you antibiotics. Knowing clean water matters does not build a sewer. Knowing a wound needs sterilizing does not create sterile instruments. How long before knowledge without infrastructure becomes its own kind of torment? Late afternoon brings rain. Not a cleansing rain. A cold, dirty rain that turns the street into a thicker paste. Waste moves. Mud climbs. Clothing grows heavy. Your shoes leak. The air chills. Smoke sinks lower. People pull hoods tighter. Keep moving because work does not stop for discomfort. You slip once, catch yourself against a wall, and your hand lands in something wet you do not identify. You pull away instantly, disgusted, but disgust is a luxury when everything is touched by everything else. Where will you wash? With what? How clean is the cloth you wipe your hand on? And if your skin is cracked from cold, what has already entered? As evening approaches, the city becomes more dangerous in another way. Fire. Medieval London is made largely of wood, thatch, pitch, cloth, straw, and flame. Cooking fires, hearth fires, candles, workshops, ovens, sparks, crowded buildings leaning together like stacked fuel. Every household needs fire, and every household fears it. You are used to controlled heat, switches, alarms, extinguishers, emergency services. Here, a careless ember can become a street's destruction. Imagine lying down at night knowing that the warmth keeping you alive could also burn the city around you. Would you sleep deeply? Or would some part of you always listen for shouting? You return toward the room where you began, if you can find it. That is not guaranteed. Medieval streets twist. Signs exist, but not in the way you know. Many people navigate by churches, trades, smells, gates, landmarks, memory. Without your phone, without maps, without streetlights, without familiar language rhythms, the city becomes a maze. What if you turn wrong? What if you end up in an alley where no one knows you? What if curfew approaches and you are still outside? A modern person is used to being locatable. Here, you can simply be lost. On the way back, you see a fight. It begins quickly, perhaps over debt, insult, trade, drink, or space. Medieval people are not constantly violent in the cartoon way we imagine, but public violence is closer to the surface than in your regulated world. Men carry knives because knives are tools as much as weapons. Apprentices can be rowdy. Rival groups can clash. Law exists, but response is not instant. There is no number to call, no police car turning the corner in 2 minutes. The crowd decides whether to intervene watch, encourage, or scatter? What would you do if violence began 3 feet from you? Would you step back? Could you? Would someone shove you into it? Would one unlucky blow end your day? The bells mark evening, shops begin to close, shutters come down, people carry goods inside. Animals are tied, fires are fed, doors are barred. The city's public face withdraws behind wood and iron. If you have a place to sleep, you go there. If you do not, the night becomes your enemy. You realize suddenly that survival in this world depends heavily on belonging to a household. A household gives you shelter, food access, reputation, witnesses, protection, tasks, identity. Without one, you are exposed. The lone individual, so celebrated in modern imagination, is fragile here. Community is not sentimental, it is practical armor. So ask yourself, who would claim you tonight? Who would open a door for you? Who would say, yes, this person belongs with us? Inside, supper is simple. Pottage again, perhaps. Bread, ale, maybe a bit of fish or cheese, if the day went well. Smoke fills the room because chimneys and ventilation are not your modern ideal. Your eyes sting, your throat scratches. The same room is kitchen, dining room, sleeping space, storage area, workplace, and animal shelter depending on the household. A hen may be nearby. A child may be crying. Someone may be mending cloth. Someone may be counting coins. Someone may be praying. There is no clean separation between functions. Life overlaps with itself. Would that closeness comfort you or crush you? Now your stomach hurts again. A real twist this time. Maybe you ate too fast. Maybe the ale was sour. Maybe the meat was old. Maybe your body is reacting to the water you thought was safe. Maybe fear has clenched your gut. You try to ignore it, but ignoring the body is difficult when medicine is uncertain and toilets are not private. You think of every surface touched, every smell inhaled, every bite swallowed. The day begins to replay itself as a list of possible mistakes. Was it the bread, the cup, the tavern bench, the hand on the wall, the splash in the market, the man coughing beside you, the fleas in the bedding? Medieval London does not need to attack you, it only needs to let you guess. Outside, night settles, true night, not modern night glowing blue from windows and street lamps, real darkness, broken by flame, moon, and chance. The city shrinks, sound changes, you hear footsteps more clearly. A horse, a shout, a door, a distant bell. Maybe watchmen call the hour. Maybe someone sings drunkenly, maybe someone cries. You cannot see down the lane properly. Anything beyond the reach of fire becomes imagination, and imagination is dangerous in the dark. What waits around the corner? A thief, a dog, a ditch, a loose cart, a man who thinks you are someone else. In your world, darkness is often atmosphere. Here, darkness is a physical condition that limits choice. You lie down again on the straw mattress. The insects have not forgotten you. The room is not quiet. Someone snores. Someone shifts. A child coughs. The building creaks. Rats move somewhere in the wall or below the floor. You hear them and understand that they are part of the city's hidden population, feeding on the same waste, grain, and scraps that keep London alive. In later centuries, people will connect rats and fleas and plague more clearly, but for now, they are simply there, as ordinary as mud. And that may be the most frightening thing about the medieval world. Many of its dangers are ordinary. They do not announce themselves as villains. They live beside people, under people, on people, in water, in cloth, in food, in breath. And now we return to the original question. Would you last a day? Or maybe you did, technically. Maybe you reached the night. Maybe no one robbed you. Maybe no cart crushed you. Maybe you did not drink the worst water. Maybe the food does not poison you. Maybe the cut on your foot does not fester. Maybe the cough from the tavern was nothing. Maybe the fleas leave you with only itching. Maybe the law never notices you. Maybe the city lets you pass through one day and keeps its worst teeth hidden. But is that survival, or is that just luck waiting to run out? Because medieval London was not impossible for the people who lived there. That matters. They were not weak. They were adapted. They knew which wells to trust, which cellars cheated, which alleys to avoid, which officials mattered, which saints to pray to, which seasons brought hunger, which smells meant danger, which neighbours would help, which doors stayed closed. They had knowledge you do not have, instincts you do not have, endurance you do not have. They were not living in your world with fewer things. They were living in a different system entirely, one your body and mind have not been trained to read. And perhaps that is the real answer. You would not fail because medieval people were tougher in some romantic, simple way. You would fail because you would be illiterate in the language of their danger. You would misread the water, misread the street, misread the food, misread the hierarchy, misread the night, misread the body, misread the silence before trouble. Modern life has made you powerful in modern ways. You can cross continents, speak through glass, summon light, preserve food, survive infections that once killed kings, but remove the systems that hold you up. Remove sanitation, medicine, electricity, refrigeration, policing, maps, clean water, antibiotics, and suddenly you discover how much of your confidence was borrowed from infrastructure. That is the unsettling truth medieval London gives us. It does not ask whether you are brave. It asks whether bravery matters when you do not know where to put your feet. It does not ask whether you are intelligent. It asks whether intelligence helps when the rules are invisible. It does not ask whether you are strong. It asks how long strength lasts after bad water, little sleep, cold rain, infected skin, and a night full of fleas. And maybe the most humbling part is this. Millions of people did survive it. Not easily, not safely, not comfortably. But day after day they woke in that city, worked in it, loved in it, raised children in it, buried family in it, prayed in it, laughed in it, cheated, traded, cooked, washed, built, argued, and kept going. They were not background characters in a dirty past. They were human beings with skills shaped by necessity. They survived a world that would break most of us by lunchtime. So when you imagine medieval London now, do not imagine only castles and cloaks and candlelight. Imagine the first breath in that rented room, the bite of fleas under the blanket, the cold floor, the shutter opening onto a street alive with waste and trade, the bread that may save you, the water that may ruin you, the market pressing bodies together, the river carrying wealth and filth in the same current, the church bell marking time, the rain turning the road to sludge, the darkness arriving not as mood but as threat, the body lying down at night unsure whether the day's smallest mistake has already begun working inside it. That is medieval London, not a fantasy, a test. And you, with your clean hands, your soft bed, your safe water, your sealed food, your antibiotics, your electric light, your private bathroom, your map, your phone, your emergency numbers, your expectation that the world should protect you from its roughest edges, would step into that city thinking you had 24 hours to prove yourself. But medieval London would not be impressed. It would not explain itself. It would not slow down. It would simply open its gates, let you in, and wait to see which ordinary thing got you first. And perhaps tonight, when you turn off the light, you may think about something as simple as a glass of water beside your bed, clear, safe, odorless, unremarkable, the kind of thing you reach for without fear. To a person in medieval London, that would be close to a miracle, not because they lacked courage, because they lived where survival was never automatic. And that is the final answer to why you would not last a day in medieval London, not because you are weak, because your world has protected you so well that you have forgotten how many things once had to go right just to keep a person alive until morning. And if you think the worst part of medieval London is what you can see, the mud, the waste, the rats, the smoke, the narrow streets, then you have already misunderstood the city, because the most dangerous parts of this world are often the things that do not announce themselves at all. The fever that begins as a slight ache behind your eyes, the water that looks clear enough in a cup, the meat that smells almost acceptable because everything around it smells worse, the flea that finds your ankle beneath the table, the stranger who hears your accent and decides you are not from here, the official who asks whose household you belong to, the darkness that comes before you have found your way back. Medieval London does not need a monster. It has systems, it has habits, it has conditions, it has 1,000 ordinary traps, and you, modern, clean, confident, and completely untrained, are walking through them as if common sense will protect you. But what if your common sense belongs to the wrong century? By early morning, the city has fully opened its eyes, and now the work begins. Not gentle work, not organized work, with clocks and contracts and health regulations, but the hard, physical, noisy work of a city that survives by muscle. Imagine being sent to help at a riverside warehouse near the Thames, because in medieval London, no able body is allowed to remain decorative for long. Barrels must be moved, sacks must be carried, rope must be pulled, wood must be stacked, fish must be unloaded, cloth must be kept dry, grain must be protected from rats, damp, thieves, and careless hands. You bend to lift something that looks manageable, and immediately your back tells you that your body has been raised in a softer world. The sack is heavier than it looks, the floor is slick. The man beside you has done this since boyhood, and he does not move like you. He knows how to place his feet, how to use his hips, how to breathe through the smell, how to ignore pain, because pain is not a reason to stop unless the body actually fails. You try to copy him, you fail. And now ask yourself honestly, how many hours of medieval labor could you perform before your strength, the strength you imagine you have, becomes embarrassment? The men around you do not need to insult you, their silence is enough. One gives you a look that says you are useless. Another laughs under his breath. An apprentice, younger than you, lifts more than you can and does it with a grin. In your own world, perhaps you can type quickly, drive a car, navigate airports, read contracts, use machines, speak into devices that send words across oceans. None of that matters here. Here, value is visible in the body. Can you carry? Can you endure? Can you wake before dawn and work until your hands split? Can you keep going in cold rain with a stomach full of coarse bread and weak ale? Can you be useful to a household, a master, a trade, a parish? If not, what are you? A mouth, a risk, a stranger. And that is when you begin to understand that survival here is not only about avoiding death, it is about earning your place among the living. The Thames moves beside you, brown and busy, carrying boats, refuse, timber, fish, trade, and the smell of the city's appetite. You watch men drink from vessels nearby, not directly from the foulest parts perhaps, but close enough that your modern mind recoils. You are thirsty, your throat is dry from smoke and labor. Someone offers you ale and you drink because refusing would be foolish, and because your body demands something. It is sour, weak, cloudy, and safer than many alternatives. Still your stomach turns. Is it the ale, the morning food, the river air, the work, the fear? In medieval London, symptoms do not arrive with explanations. They arrive as questions. And each question opens another door. What if this is the beginning of sickness? What if you cannot work tomorrow? What if you cannot pay? What if no one is obligated to care for you? At the river you see another side of London's wealth. Ships bring goods from distant places and the city feeds on them. Wine, wool, spices, timber, fish, grain, cloth, metal, wax, salt. London is not isolated, it is connected, hungry, ambitious, but every connection is also a pathway. Goods bring money. People bring stories. Ships bring opportunity. Ships also bring disease. And though you may be standing in a year before or after the worst plague, the principle remains terrifyingly simple. The same trade that makes the city rich can make it vulnerable. What enters London does not always declare itself at the gate. So when you admire the bustle of the port, the barrels rolling, the merchants bargaining, the cranes and ropes and shouting labourers, ask yourself, how much danger in history arrived looking exactly like commerce? By midday, you are sent through another quarter of the city, and the work changes, but the assault does not. You pass near trades that modern cities have pushed away from polite view. Tanners, dyers, butchers, brewers, fullers, fishmongers. Each trade has its own smell, its own waste, its own risks. Dye vats stain skin and water. Tanners soak hides in urine and lime. Butchers leave blood and offal. Brewers create warmth, steam, grain, and sourness. Fullers use stale urine to clean and thicken cloth. This is not trivia. This is the city's chemistry. London produces and production stinks. It leaks into gutters. It clings to clothing. It enters lungs. It makes money. It makes disease more likely. It makes the city alive and unclean at the same time. Would you still call it picturesque if you had to breathe it for 12 hours? And then there is sound, the endless sound, not background music, not cinematic atmosphere, but pressure. Hammers, bells, wheels, animals, bargaining, prayers, arguments, tools, children, coughing, doors, water, hooves, metal. The city never gives your mind a clean surface to rest on. You are used to choosing noise, headphones, silence, a closed room, a quiet car. Here, sound belongs to everyone and no one. It invades you. It tells you where you are, what time it is, who is working, who is selling, who is angry, who is dying. After half a day, would you be alert or exhausted? Would you notice danger more quickly, or would you become so tired that danger could stand right beside you and you would miss it? You pass a church again, and this time you see not a funeral, but a wedding party leaving beneath the sound of bells. For one strange moment, life insists on being bright. There is laughter. A woman smiles. Someone carries flowers or greenery. Children run too close to the mud. A man's cloak has been brushed clean for the occasion. And this is another thing modern people forget about the past. Misery was not constant in the way we imagine. People laughed, they married, they flirted, they drank, they sang, they loved their children, they enjoyed gossip, they admired good cloth, they complained about prices, they told jokes, they made beauty where they could. But does that make the world safer, or does it make it more heartbreaking because joy existed right beside dangers that could erase it overnight? The wedding party moves on, and a beggar takes their place in your view. He is thin, perhaps disabled, perhaps old, perhaps sick, perhaps all of these. He asks for alms in the name of God. In this world, charity is not only kindness, it is spiritual economy. Giving to the poor may help your soul. Refusing may harden it. But you are not from here. You do not know how much to give. You do not know whether your coin is too much, too little, or a mark of foolishness. You do not know whether the person watching you is measuring your generosity or your purse. Even mercy requires local knowledge. So what do you do when goodness itself has rules you do not understand? Now imagine you are hungry enough to buy food from a street seller. Hot pies, perhaps. Meat pies. The smell is incredible after hours of labor and smoke. Warm pastry, fat, pepper, if you are lucky, a portable meal. You want it badly. But what is inside? Fresh meat, old meat, eel, offal, something stretched, disguised, spiced, and sealed beneath crust? Medieval pies are practical, delicious, and risky, especially to a stranger who cannot read the seller's reputation. People knew bad food existed. Authorities tried to regulate quality, But regulation is only as strong as inspection, enforcement, and honesty. Would hunger make you careless? Would the smell of hot food override the small voice asking whether this meal is safe? And if it did, would you know before nightfall? As afternoon deepens, your body begins making a list of complaints. Feet sore, back tight, eyes stinging, throat raw, stomach uneasy, skin itching, head heavy, hands dirty in ways that feel impossible to fully clean. And this is still only one day. Medieval people did not experience this as an adventure. This was the texture of life. The body was always negotiating with environment. Cold, damp, smoke, parasites, bad teeth, infected cuts, digestive trouble, exhaustion, hunger, pregnancy, injury, fever. When modern people imagine courage, they often imagine dramatic moments. But what about the courage of waking every day inside a body that is never fully comfortable and still doing what must be done? You see children working, not playing at work, working, carrying, fetching, sweeping, watching animals, helping in shops, running errands, learning trades. Childhood exists, but it is shorter, rougher, more embedded in labor than the modern mind wants to admit. A boy with thin wrists carries a load that makes you wince. A girl watches a younger child while balancing a basket. An apprentice is shouted at by his master in public and does not answer back. Their bodies learn the city early. Yours has arrived late. And now ask yourself, if survival requires training from childhood, what chance does an adult outsider really have? Near a shop front, you witness a bargaining dispute. A customer claims the measure is false. The seller denies it. Voices sharpen. A small crowd forms instantly because public disagreement is public theatre. Someone mentions the assize. Someone threatens to report the seller. Someone else tells the customer to pay or leave. You do not fully understand the terms, but you understand the energy. Reputation is at stake, money is at stake, honor is at stake. In a city where credit and trust are vital, being known as dishonest can destroy a livelihood, but being known as weak can do damage too. Would you know when to defend yourself? Would you know when to retreat? Would your modern politeness look like virtue or like vulnerability? The day is not only physically dangerous, it is socially sharp. Medieval London is full of eyes, guild eyes, neighbour eyes, parish eyes, servant eyes, master eyes, clerical eyes, legal eyes. You are seen. Your behaviour is read. Your clothing is read. Your accent is read. Your spending is read. Your body is read. And the city is smaller than it feels. Reputation travels faster than feet. A mistake made in one lane may meet you in another. In your world, anonymity can protect you. In this one, anonymity can condemn you. Which would frighten you more? Being known by everyone or known by no one? As the sky lowers toward evening, you pass a cook shop where steam rises into the cold air. This is one of the few moments when medieval London almost seduces you. A pot bubbling, bread warming, spices in the air. People gathered close, not from nostalgia, but because heat and food pull human beings together in every century. For a moment you understand why people loved their city despite everything. London had work, money, churches, markets, news, possibility. It had colour, it had movement, it had stories. It had more life crowded into one street than some villages saw in a season. And that raises a more complicated question. What if the same things that make a place dangerous also make it irresistible? You eat something warm. It helps. For a few minutes your body believes in survival again. This is important. The past was not experienced as one uninterrupted misery. Relief came in small portions. Warm food, dry socks if you had them, a friendly voice, a fair price, a fire that did not smoke too badly, a priest's blessing, a successful sale, a child laughing, a cup shared. The body clings to these things, but relief is not safety. Relief is only a pause. Then someone nearby mentions sickness in another ward. The word changes the air, not panic, not yet, but attention. People listen without seeming to listen. A fever has taken 3 in one household. Or perhaps it was 5. Or perhaps that is exaggeration. A traveller came from the coast, or perhaps from the north. A servant died suddenly. A woman has swellings. A man says it is God's judgment. Another says it is bad air from the river. Another says the reports are lies meant to raise prices. Rumour is medieval social media, but slower, fleshier, and sometimes more dangerous because it arrives attached to a face you may trust. What would you believe? And how would you act before belief became certainty? You decide that if you are going to survive the night, you need water, warmth, and a secure door. That sounds simple. It is not. Water must be fetched or bought. Warmth requires fuel. Fuel costs money. A secure door requires belonging somewhere with a door that will be closed to others and opened to you. Each basic need is attached to labor, money, status, and relationship. Modern comfort hides chains of support so well that you mistake them for natural conditions. Medieval London makes the chains visible. Someone cut the wood, someone carried the water, someone brewed the ale, someone baked the bread, someone cleaned the hearth, someone locked the gate, someone watched the street. Which of those someones are you? At dusk, the legal city begins to tighten. Gates matter, curfew matters, watchmen matter. Wandering without purpose becomes more suspicious. The later it gets, the fewer respectable reasons you have to be outside. If stopped, what do you say? That you are exploring? That you are making a video in your mind? That you come from centuries ahead and underestimated the smell? The city would not laugh with you. It would treat confusion as a problem. A person out of place after dark could be drunk, criminal, vagrant, foreign, diseased, or dangerous. And in a world where enforcement may be rough, you do not want to become a problem. You hurry. The street that felt merely crowded in daylight now feels predatory. Shadows gather beneath overhanging upper floors. The mud hides edges. A cart left at an angle becomes an obstacle. A dog appears from nowhere and vanishes again. Someone brushes past you too hard. Was it accidental? Did you just lose something? You check. Maybe your coin is still there. Maybe not. The moment you stop to check, you become still in a moving street, and stillness draws attention. What is safer, to know what you lost, or to keep moving as if nothing happened? You reach your lodging if you are lucky. Inside, the air is warmer but thicker. Smoke collects beneath the ceiling. A candle burns with a smell of animal fat if it is tallow. Cleaner if wax, but wax is expensive. Shadows move against the walls. People talk about the day, prices, work, sickness, a dispute near the market, a rumour from the river, a death in a nearby parish. Someone says London is cursed. Someone else says London has always survived. That is the comfort cities give themselves. We have survived before, but every disaster asks the same question anew. Will you survive this time? You try to clean yourself before sleeping. This becomes almost absurd. Your hands are dirty. The water is limited. Soap exists, but is not the casual abundance you know. Linen can be changed if you have enough. Outer garments are not constantly washed. Smoke is in your hair. Street filth is on your shoes. Fleas are in the bedding. The room itself has lived a long life before you arrived. Cleanliness here is relative, effortful, incomplete. And yet people cared about cleanliness in the ways available to them. They washed hands and faces, they changed linen, they swept, they used herbs, water, smoke, and routine. The myth that medieval people loved filth is false. The truth is worse and more human. Many wanted cleanliness but lacked the systems to secure it fully. What would that do to you psychologically, to want clean and never be able to reach it? Supper comes. You are tired enough that even plain food feels precious. You eat slowly now, less confident than in the morning. You study each bite. Your stomach still worries you. The room's conversation moves around you. Someone talks about wages. Someone talks about a lord's household. Someone talks about a hanging. Someone talks about marriage. Someone complains about taxes. Life is not arranged around your survival story. The city does not know you are the main character. That may be one of the most humbling things about entering the past. You are not central. You are barely competent. Everyone else is living. After supper, the door is barred. That sound matters. Wood into place. Iron, if there is iron. A boundary drawn between the dangerous outside and the only slightly less dangerous inside. You are grateful for it. Then immediately you realize that barred doors also trap smoke, smells, insects, illness, and people together. Safety is always partial. Every protection creates another risk. Open the shutter for air, and you invite cold, thieves, bad smells, sparks, perhaps worse. Close it, and the room thickens. Sleep near others for warmth, and you share their fleas and breath. Sleep apart, and you freeze. Eat preserved food, and you risk rot. Eat fresh food, and you risk scarcity. Drink water, and you risk sickness. Drink ale, and you risk dullness. Medieval survival is not choosing safety. It is choosing which danger you understand best. Night deepens. Now the city becomes sound again. Not the full roar of day, but fragments. A watchman's call, footsteps, a horse shifting, a distant shout, the creak of wood, rats, someone coughing in the room, someone coughing outside, a baby crying, a prayer whispered, a drunk voice fading down the lane. You lie on the straw and feel every bite on your skin. You want to sleep, but sleep is not surrender here. Sleep is exposure. Fire could start. Someone could become ill. A thief could try a door. A rat could cross the floor. Your stomach could worsen. The person beside you could be carrying fever. And the bedding itself is alive with small hunger. Would you sleep? Or would you lie awake, understanding for the first time that modern sleep is protected by an empire of invisible systems? Clean sheets, locked doors, streetlights, police, medicine, pest control, central heating, glass windows, sewers, plumbing, refrigeration, electricity. 1,000 things you did not build, but trust completely. Without them, night becomes older, and you become smaller. Near midnight, your stomach cramps hard enough to wake you fully. There it is. The moment your confidence ends. Maybe it will pass. Maybe it is the food. Maybe it is the ale. Maybe it is contaminated water. Maybe fear. Maybe something worse. You need to relieve yourself, and suddenly the practical reality of the medieval body returns with force. Where do you go? How dark is the way? Who must you step over? What container, corner, yard, privy, or street arrangement is available? What smell will follow? What shame? What risk? It is almost funny from a distance. Inside the body, it is not funny at all. Civilization is never more important than when the body loses control. You manage somehow, but now you are weaker. Sweating, embarrassed, cold, and afraid. The city has not killed you. It has humbled you. And it is not even morning. This is why the phrase "you would not last a day" is not only about dying, it is about breaking the illusion that survival is a personal trait. You think you survive because you are clever, strong, cautious, capable. But much of what you call survival is the gift of being born inside systems that remove ancient dangers before you ever meet them. Medieval London shows you the dangers again. It strips away the hidden machinery and asks what is left. And what is left? A body. A frightened, tired, hungry, itching, aching body in the dark. Now imagine doing this not for one day, but every day. Imagine being born here, learning the smells before you know the words for them, learning which puddles to avoid, which cellars to trust, which bells mean prayer, and which mean alarm, which coughs are ordinary, and which empty a room, which officials can be argued with, and which cannot, which neighbours will lend fire, which doors should never be knocked after dark. Imagine your body becoming medieval, not because it is tougher by magic, but because it has no alternative. It adapts or it dies. That is the part we owe medieval people. Respect. Not romantic admiration, not pity alone. Respect. They lived in a world that would overwhelm us, and they made homes in it. They built churches that still stand. They traded across seas. They raised families. They organized guilds. They buried their dead. They told stories. They made laws. They created beauty. They sinned and prayed and cheated and loved and endured. They were not merely dirty, ignorant people waiting for the modern age to rescue them. They were skilled survivors of a harsh environment. But you are a visitor with soft assumptions. You would wake thinking the past was simple. By breakfast, the water would worry you. By mid-morning, the street would exhaust you. By noon, the food would threaten you. By afternoon, the work would expose you. By dusk, the darkness would corner you. By midnight, your own body might become your enemy. And if you did reach morning, truly reach it, alive, unrobbed, uninfected, uninjured, undiscovered as a useless stranger, you might not feel victorious. You might feel grateful in a way modern life rarely teaches. Grateful for clear water, for soap, for a toilet that flushes, for a bed that does not bite, for food kept cold, for streets that do not run with waste, for doctors who know what infection is, for laws you can at least try to understand, for light at the touch of a switch, for the simple miracle of waking up and not having to calculate whether the city itself will defeat you before nightfall. And maybe that is the real reason to spend one day in medieval London, not to prove that you are stronger than the past. You are, probably not. Not to laugh at how hard they had it. That would be too easy and unfair, but to understand the distance between their world and yours. To feel, even for a moment, the weight of all the systems standing quietly between you and the old dangers of human life. To realize that comfort is not the natural state of the world. It is an achievement, a fragile one, built slowly, painfully, by generations who got tired of bad water, dark streets, rotten food, burning houses, infected wounds, and children dying from things we can now prevent. Medieval London did not care whether you were ready. It did not care whether you were brave. It did not care whether you had watched documentaries, read books, played games, or imagined yourself clever enough to adapt. It would give you the same thing it gave everyone. A morning, a street, a body, a hunger, a risk, a night, and then it would wait. So the next time someone says they wish they had lived in the Middle Ages, ask them which part they mean, the candlelight or the smoke, the tavern or the tainted ale, the market or the meat turning in the air, the castle walls or the cold room, the church bells or the funeral bells, the romance or the rats, the adventure or the infected cut, the freedom from modern life or the total dependence on systems even harsher and more intimate than ours, because the past is not a costume, it is a climate. And medieval London was a climate most of us are no longer built to survive. If this story stayed with you, tell me which part made you realize you would be in trouble first. Was it the water, the food, the smell, the darkness, the law, the insects in the bed, the river, the work? Or was it something smaller, something almost embarrassing, like realizing you would not even know where to wash your hands? And if you are watching this at night, safe in your room, maybe take 1 second before you sleep to notice the quiet systems around you. The clean glass nearby, the locked door, the soft bed, the light waiting obediently for your hand, the absence of rats in the wall, The fact that tomorrow morning when you wake up, the street outside will not be medieval London. That is not a small thing. That is history working in your favor. And for tonight at least, you lasted the day only because you did not have to live it. And now, after everything the day has already taken from you, after the bites in the bedding, the filth in the street, the sour ale, the suspicious meat, the ache in your feet, the noise that never really stopped, the eyes of strangers reading you incorrectly, the work that exposed your softness, and the darkness that made the whole city feel older than the human mind. You might think you have finally understood medieval London. You might think the lesson is simple. It was dirty, it was dangerous, it was uncomfortable. You would not last because you are modern and the city was harsh. But that is only the surface of the truth, and medieval London, like every dangerous place in history, becomes more frightening the closer you look. Because the deeper question is not whether you could survive the smell, or the insects, or the bad food, or even the darkness. The deeper question is this: could you survive a world where almost nothing around you existed for your convenience, and where every hour demanded that you understand rules nobody had time to explain? Imagine waking the next morning because perhaps you did survive the first night. Perhaps the cramps passed, perhaps the fleas only irritated you, perhaps the person coughing beside you did not have anything deadly, perhaps the fire did not spread, perhaps nobody broke in, perhaps the city allowed you one night of mercy. But now the bell rings again and the mercy is over, because survival in medieval London is not proven once. It must be proven again every morning. You open your eyes and the same room waits for you. The same smoke, the same bedding, the same cold, the same bodies close by, the same street below, already wet with things you do not want to name. And here is the first cruel realization of the second day. Yesterday did not make you stronger. It only made you more aware of how many ways the city can reach you. Would that awareness help you, or would it begin to wear you down before you even stood? You are sent this time into the household itself, because to understand medieval London you cannot only walk through its streets. You have to enter its rooms. And this is where another illusion dies. You may imagine danger outside and safety inside, but in a medieval house, the boundary is never that clean. The home is shelter, yes, but it is also smoke, crowding, labor, storage, animals, illness, cooking, waste, damp, heat, and cold, all pressed into one living space. The same room may hold a meal, a sleeping child, a sick relative, a basket of laundry, a caged bird, a hen, sacks of grain, tools, and a fire that must be watched constantly. Privacy is thin, silence is rare, clean air is unreliable. Even the walls are not the kind of walls you trust. They breathe, leak, rot, burn, and carry sound. What would happen to your idea of rest if the place meant to protect you also kept exposing you? There is work before food, always work before comfort. Water must be fetched, ashes cleared, fire coaxed back to life, rushes shaken or replaced if there are resources to do it, clothing brushed, pots scraped, bread cut carefully. Nothing is effortless. You are asked to carry water, and for one foolish instant you think this is simple. A container, a walk, a return, but water has weight, real weight. It pulls the shoulder, strains the wrist, soaks the hem if you are clumsy, and if you spill it, you do not simply refill from a shining tap. You go again, and every journey is another exposure to the street, another negotiation with mud, people, animals, and eyes. How many conveniences in your life are really just the disappearance of carrying? At breakfast, someone complains of tooth pain. Not dramatically, not with panic. Just a hard, tired complaint, as if the pain has been there long enough to become a member of the household. And this opens one of the most intimate terrors of the medieval body, the mouth. You do not think about teeth until they hurt, because your world has dentists, anesthesia, fillings, antibiotics, toothbrushes, toothpaste, clean water, and the casual belief that pain can be scheduled into an appointment and fixed. In medieval London, a bad tooth can become a private hell. It can swell the jaw, it can poison the blood, it can make eating impossible, it can lead to extraction performed with tools and force and very little mercy. And now ask yourself, if one small tooth could become a serious threat, how brave would you feel about the rest of your body? A man in the household shows you his hand. He cut it 2 days ago on a tool. The wound is red around the edges. He shrugs. He has work. He cannot stop. Someone suggests a poultice. Someone else says, wash it with wine if there is any to spare. Someone says, leave it open. Someone says, bind it. Nobody speaks of bacteria. Nobody can. But everybody understands that wounds can turn bad, that flesh can change color, that swelling and heat mean danger. They have seen small injuries become funerals. Your modern mind screams for antiseptic, sterile gauze, antibiotics, a clinic. But there is no clinic waiting. There is only judgment, experience, pain tolerance, and chance. Would your knowledge save him? Or would you stand there helpless, knowing exactly what he needs and unable to produce it? By mid-morning, you are taken through a better part of the city, and for the first time you see medieval comfort. Not modern comfort, but comfort all the same. A merchant's house. Better timber, better cloth, more space, cleaner rushes, stronger doors. More food stored away, perhaps glass in some windows, perhaps servants moving with practiced efficiency. The air is still smoky, but less suffocating. The table is better supplied. There is a sense of order, of insulation, of people who can buy distance from some of the city's worst edges. And here is where the story becomes less simple. Medieval London was not equally survivable for everyone. Money could not buy modern safety, but it could buy better food, better fuel, better bedding, stronger walls, more help, more room, more options. If disease came, it could still enter. If fire came, it could still burn. If violence came, it could still strike. But hardship fell differently depending on where you slept and who would open a door for you. So if you say you would survive medieval London, which London do you mean? The merchant's table or the apprentice's floor? The private chamber or the crowded room above the shop? The man with servants or the woman carrying water before sunrise? Then you see the other side again. A poorer household near the edge of a lane where the mud sits longer and the smell is heavier. The room is smaller, the food thinner, the clothing patched harder. A child's nose runs, an old woman coughs near the hearth. The fire is weak because fuel costs money. Damp has entered the walls and stayed there. Here, cold is not atmosphere. It is an enemy that eats slowly. It stiffens fingers. It worsens coughs. It makes sleep shallow. It makes every task harder. And suddenly you understand that winter in medieval London is not a season of cozy candlelight. It is a pressure on the poor. What happens to the body when it is never fully warm for months? What happens to patience, to kindness, to work, to prayer? You might think you would adapt quickly. People always say that humans adapt. And yes, humans do, but adaptation is not instant. Adaptation is the result of childhood, repetition, knowledge, scars, and losses. Medieval Londoners were not walking around in constant amazement at their own difficulty. They knew how to function because the city had trained them from birth. You, arriving suddenly, would not be adapting. You would be translating too slowly while consequences moved at full speed. Every task would ask a question you had never practiced answering. How much fuel is enough for the night? Which food will keep? Which cough matters? Which stranger is dangerous? Which official can be ignored? Which insult must be answered? Which alley floods? Which bell means what? Which price is fair? Which silence is suspicious? Could you learn all of that in a day, or would the city punish you for not already knowing? At noon, you are brought near the Guildhall, near the structures of civic power, and another layer of the city appears. Medieval London is not chaos in the way modern people often imagine. It has rules, many rules, trade rules, market rules, apprenticeship rules, sumptuary expectations, religious obligations, civic duties, ward responsibilities, taxes, tolls, fines, oaths, customs. The danger is not absence of order. The danger is that the order is not yours. It is dense, local, personal, and enforced by people who know one another. You do not know where authority begins or ends. A mayor, an alderman, a sheriff, a guild master, a parish priest, a watchman, a household master, all may matter depending on the moment. How long before you offend a system you did not even see? You watch an apprentice disciplined in public by his master, not gently, not privately. Public correction is part of training. The boy's face burns with humiliation, but he takes it. He may live in the master's house. He may owe years of service. He may be beaten, taught, fed, exploited, protected, and shaped by the same institution. Is he abused? Is he being trained? Is he better off than a child with no placement at all? The answer may be yes to all of it, and that is why the past resists easy judgment. Modern categories help us morally, but they can flatten reality. In medieval London, dependence is survival. Freedom without protection can become exposure. So which would you choose, harsh belonging or dangerous independence? The street pulls you onward. You pass a hospital, though not a hospital in the modern sense. A religious institution. A place of care, prayer, shelter, and limited medicine. The sick, poor, elderly, travellers, and dying may pass through such places depending on resources and purpose. Care exists, compassion exists, but it is not systematized like your world. It is uneven, religious, local, fragile, and overwhelmed easily. If you collapsed, who would take you in? Would they see you as deserving, as a stranger, as a burden, as a soul to be helped, as a risk? Your survival could depend not only on your condition, but on someone's interpretation of your worth. In the afternoon, the weather shifts again. A wind comes through the lanes, pushing smoke sideways, lifting smells from gutters, rattling signs, making hanging cloths snap in the air. For one moment, the sky clears enough to show you the city's shape, church towers, roof lines, smoke columns, the river, flashing dull light, London Bridge, crowded and impossible, city walls holding all this human intensity in place. It is magnificent. That is the uncomfortable truth. Medieval London is not only disgusting, it is magnificent. It is alive with ambition. People come here because things happen here. Money happens here. News happens here. Work happens here. Power happens here. A village may be cleaner in some ways, quieter, more breathable, but London is the place where a person might rise, trade, learn, vanish, sin, profit, and be remembered. Would you leave if you were born here? Or would the same city that threatened you also convince you that nowhere else mattered? This is the trap of great cities. They make danger feel like the price of possibility. You are taken near a school or a clerical setting, and literacy appears as another kind of power. Not everyone reads, not everyone writes. Documents matter, seals matter, Latin matters, accounts matter. A clerk with ink-stained fingers may hold more practical power than a strong man with a cart, because the written word can record debt, property, guilt, agreement, obligation. You, modern, can read, perhaps easily, but can you read this script, this language, this abbreviation, this legal culture? Can you make sense of records in a world where literacy is specialized and tied to authority? Again, you have a modern skill that does not transfer cleanly. You know how to read your world, not theirs. Later you see animals being driven through the streets. Not as a quaint rural image, as traffic. Cattle, pigs, sheep, horses, dogs, chickens, all part of the city's breathing machinery. Animals provide food, labor, transport, warmth, waste, danger. A horse can crush a foot, a pig can bite, a dog can carry fleas, livestock can panic. Meat begins as a living creature moving through the same streets as children and merchants. You are used to food appearing separated from its animal origin. Here, the distance is short. Blood and dinner are neighbors. Would that make you more respectful of food? Or simply more nauseous? You enter a yard where laundry is being handled, and again, the ordinary becomes difficult. Washing clothes is labor. Water, soap, or lye, beating, rinsing, drying, weather, space, time. Linen matters because it touches the body and can be cleaned more often than outer garments. But cleaning is never frictionless. It consumes effort. It depends on weather. It depends on access. Modern people often think of medieval people as careless about hygiene because they were dirty by our standards. But the more precise truth is that cleanliness required work that modern systems have hidden from you. What would your standards become if every clean cloth demanded hours of labor? By late afternoon, you are exhausted in a way that feels almost emotional, not just tired, reduced. The city has taken away your assumptions one at a time. You assumed water, it questioned water. You assumed food, it questioned food. You assumed sleep. It filled sleep with insects. You assumed privacy. It crowded you. You assumed light. It made darkness powerful. You assumed law would be legible. It made law local. You assumed sickness could be named and treated. It made the body mysterious again. What remains of your confidence when every ordinary action has become uncertain? Then comes one more threat, and it is not filth or disease or hunger. It is time. You realize how much medieval life depends on daylight, seasons, bells, fasts, feasts, market days, river tides, work rhythms, and church calendars. Time is not abstract here, it is embodied. Winter means fuel pressure. Lent changes food. Feast days change work. Harvest failures change prices. Rain changes roads. Darkness changes safety. The river's movement changes trade. Bells divide the day. You are used to controlling time, stretching it with screens and lights, ignoring seasons with heating and refrigeration. Here, time controls you. And the question becomes, could you live in a world where nature still had that much authority over your schedule? Evening gathers again, and now you understand the city differently from the first night. The closing shutters no longer seem quaint. They are defense. The barred doors no longer seem dramatic. They are necessity. The rush toward home is not merely habit. It is survival. You watch people move faster as light drains from the sky, and you see that they are not afraid in a theatrical way. They are practiced. This is what knowledge looks like when it lives in the body. They know night. You are only beginning to. Inside, someone tells a story by the fire. This is another thing you had nearly forgotten. Without modern entertainment, stories are infrastructure too. They carry warning, memory, humor, morality, history, gossip, fear. A story can teach which road is unsafe, which family is cursed, which saint helped, which lord cheated, which disease passed through, which neighbor behaved well when it mattered. The spoken word holds the city together. Would you listen differently if stories were not content but survival memory? A child asks a question about death. No one becomes shocked. Death is not hidden enough for adults to pretend children do not notice it. The answer given is religious, practical, perhaps tender, perhaps blunt. The soul, God, confession, heaven, sin, mercy. This is not decorative belief, it is emotional technology. It helps people live near uncertainty. You may not share the faith of the room, but can you understand the work it is doing when medicine is limited, when death is near, when justice is uneven, when suffering needs meaning? Belief is not simply an idea, it is shelter. What shelters you when your own systems are removed? Night again, the final night of your imagined day. And now let us make the test harder. Suppose you truly must survive alone until morning. No friendly household, no guaranteed bed, no one vouching for you, no known trade, no secure place. The city after dark becomes a different creature. You cannot simply wander. Watchmen may challenge you, thieves may notice you, dogs may follow, the cold will find you. The river is unsafe. Church porches may shelter some, but not without risk. A doorway may seem useful until the owner drives you away. You look for a place that is dry, hidden, and not already claimed. How long before discomfort becomes danger? How long before fear becomes poor judgment? How long before you trade dignity for warmth? This is where you understand homelessness in the medieval city, not as a social issue written in policy language, but as immediate exposure to weather, law, violence, hunger, and suspicion. A person without a household is not merely lonely, they are structurally vulnerable. The city is built from belonging units: family, trade, parish, guild, master, household. Outside those networks, survival thins dramatically. Modern individualism would not save you. In medieval London, the question is not who are you in some abstract sense. It is whose are you, who knows you, who claims you, who will answer if you are accused, who will notice if you disappear. If your answer is no one, then you are already in danger. The night air is colder than you expected, the kind of cold that gets into the hands first, then the feet, then the mood, then the thoughts. Hunger returns. Your stomach is not dramatic now, just hollow and uncertain. You smell food from behind a door and understand how painful shelter can be when you are outside it. You hear laughter from a room you cannot enter. You see light under a shutter and realize that community is sometimes most visible to those excluded from it. Would you still think of survival as an individual challenge? Or would you finally understand that being alone is one of the greatest dangers of all? A watchman's voice sounds somewhere down the lane. You move without knowing whether moving is wise. The mud sucks at your feet. A rat crosses near a wall. Somewhere a door opens and two men step out laughing, then fall silent when they see you. For a moment, all three of you measure the situation. Who are you to them? A target? A nuisance? A threat? A madman? You lower your eyes because perhaps that is safer. Or perhaps lowering your eyes makes you look weak. You step aside, they pass. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And for the first time you understand that in a world like this, nothing happened can feel like a blessing. You find a covered corner, not comfortable, not clean, not safe, but less exposed than the street. You sit. You pull your clothing tighter. You listen. And as hours pass, the city reveals its night layers. People moving secretly. Lovers, perhaps. Thieves, perhaps. Servants on errands, watchmen, animals, a cart, a cry that stops quickly. Bells in the distance, wind against wood, the river somewhere beyond still moving in the dark as if human fear means nothing to it. Your eyes adjust, but not enough. Your body cools. Your thoughts begin to lose their modern shape. You are no longer analyzing medieval London. You are enduring it. And that is a different kind of knowledge. By the deepest part of the night, the city has stripped the challenge down to its simplest form. Stay warm, stay hidden, stay awake enough to notice danger, stay calm enough not to make noise, stay hopeful enough not to panic. This is not adventure, this is not content. This is an animal problem, ancient and humiliating, a body in darkness trying to remain alive until morning. Would you make it? Maybe. But if you did, dawn would not feel like an aesthetic. would feel like rescue. The first grey light appears above the roofs. The city begins again. Bells, feet, hooves, voices, smoke, labour, hunger. You are still there, cold, filthy, exhausted, bitten, ashamed, and alive. And if someone asked whether you survived medieval London, what would you say? Yes? Technically? Barely? By luck? And would you want a second day? That is the final test. Not whether you can imagine one day, whether, after living it, you would choose another. Because the people of medieval London did not get to leave when the lesson was complete. They did not step back into a clean room after the experiment. They did not wake in the future with a story to tell. They woke into the next day, and the next, and the next. They buried children. They celebrated marriages. They feared fire. They drank ale. They argued over prices. They prayed for souls. They carried water. They swept floors that would never be truly clean. They endured tooth pain. They watched wounds. They obeyed bells. They locked doors. They smelled the river. They learned the city because their lives depended on it. And now we can answer the title honestly. Why would you not last a day in medieval London? Because you would be fighting the wrong battle. You would be looking for the dramatic danger, the sword, the thief, the plague cart, the burning building, while the real test began immediately with the bedding, the water, the food, the shoes, the street, the hierarchy, the darkness, the body, the thousand small pressures that medieval people had learned to navigate before they were old enough to name them. You would expect danger to look like danger. Medieval London's danger often looked like breakfast, like a puddle, like a friendly cup, like a warm room with bad air, like a cheap pie, like a small cut, like a wrong turn, like a door that did not open to you. You would not last because you would underestimate the ordinary, and that perhaps is the most important thing this city can teach. Most of human survival has never been about heroic moments. It has been about ordinary systems working well enough for one more day. Clean water, safe food, waste removed, fire controlled, illness treated, streets lit, bodies protected from cold, communities stable enough to notice when someone is missing. These are the quiet miracles beneath modern life. They are so constant that they become invisible. Medieval London makes them visible by taking them away. So tonight, if you are listening from a room where the floor is clean, where the air does not sting, where water waits in a glass, where your food has been kept cold, where your door locks, where insects are not feeding on you in the straw, where a stomach cramp is usually inconvenience rather than terror, understand this: you are not simply more advanced, you are protected. You live inside the accumulated labor of centuries of people who solved problems that once ruled the human day. The sewer beneath the street, the clean tap, the streetlight, the vaccine, the antibiotic, the building code, the fire regulation, the food inspection, the dentist, the hospital, the map, the clock, the locked door, the quiet bedroom. These are not boring modern details. They are the difference between your confidence and your collapse. And perhaps medieval London's final gift is humility. Not the kind that says the past was only miserable. It was not. There was music, warmth, faith, skill, beauty, ambition, love, humour, bread fresh from ovens, bells over rooftops, work done with pride, stories told by firelight, hands that knew their craft, neighbours who helped, children who played in streets that would horrify us, people who did not think of themselves as living in darkness because it was the only world they knew. But also, beneath all of that, there was danger woven into the ordinary fabric of the day, and you would feel it. Immediately. In your throat, in your stomach, in your feet, in your skin. In the moment you realized there was nowhere truly clean to put your hand. In the moment you understood the water might harm you. In the moment darkness arrived and did not care whether you were ready. in the moment you saw that intelligence without local knowledge is not enough, in the moment you needed help and realized help depends on belonging. So do not imagine yourself walking confidently through medieval London like a hero in a historical drama. Imagine yourself standing in the lane just before dawn, cold, underfed, itching, uncertain, trying to decide where to step while someone above you opens a shutter and throws the night's waste into the street. That is the past meeting you honestly. No music, no romance, no pause for explanation, just the city waking up. And you inside it, and if that image stays with you, good, let it stay. Because history should not only entertain us, sometimes it should return our attention to the things we stopped noticing: the glass of water, the clean shirt, the soft bed, the safe street, the quiet night, the fact that your food does not need to be smelled with suspicion, the fact that a cut on your hand is probably not a death sentence, the fact that you can be alone in a room and still be protected by systems you cannot see. Medieval London had no patience for softness, but perhaps softness is not weakness. Perhaps softness is what happens when generations succeed. Perhaps your clean hands, your safe food, your warm room, and your easy sleep are not signs that you are less human than those who came before you, but signs that some of humanity's long war against discomfort, disease, filth, darkness, and random death actually worked. And that is worth remembering. So the next time you hear someone say, "The modern world has made us weak," think carefully. Maybe the modern world has made us unaware. Maybe it has hidden the old enemies so well that we mistake protection for nature. Maybe it has allowed us to forget how much intelligence, labor, pain, and death were required to make ordinary life ordinary. But weakness? Stand one day in medieval London before you decide. Stand in the mud, breathe the smoke, drink carefully, eat suspiciously, work until your hands burn, walk until your feet open, listen for bells, watch the light fade, look for a door that knows your name. Then ask whether comfort is weakness, or whether comfort is one of the greatest achievements human beings ever built. That is why you would not last a day in medieval London, and that is why the people who did deserve more than our pity. They deserve our attention, our respect, and maybe, quietly, our gratitude. Because they endured the world before so many of the protections we now take for granted had been imagined, demanded, built, repaired, and defended. They lived close to the old dangers. They learned them by smell, by sound, by scar, by story. They survived long enough to make the next generation possible. And somewhere far down that chain of survival, there is you, lying in a safe room, listening to this story about a city that would have broken you. So tonight, when this video ends, do not just think, "I am glad I was not there." Think of the people who were. The baker rising before dawn, the woman carrying water, the apprentice with aching shoulders, the child learning which puddles to avoid, the watchman calling into the dark, the merchant counting coins by candlelight, the servant sleeping near the hearth, the mother checking a fever, the stranger hoping someone will open a door. All of them inside that loud, filthy, brilliant, dangerous city. All of them trying, as humans have always tried, to last one more day. And tomorrow, when you wake up, before you touch your phone, before you complain about the noise outside, before you drink from the tap without thinking, pause for 1 second and remember what a miracle it is to begin a day without having to survive medieval London first.